Welcome back to another episode of Life After Corporate, my friend. And if you're new to our show, welcome home. This is where you get solid advice from the heart on what it truly takes to make this transition from corporate leadership to running your own business. And today we're going to talk about how being successful and driving sales is not antithetical to your mission and purpose, about how you can align to your mission and purpose and still make money. And my guest today is Peter Svenneby, and he is the founder of Found Her Edge, a global circle for B2B women founders focused on sustainable founder-led sales and organic revenue growth. He speaks my language. He works with women who are leaving corporate and building early-stage companies, helping them sharpen their strategy, grow with clarity, and lead without burnout. Peter is known for his grounded, practical approach that blends sales frameworks with the deeper identity work of becoming a founder. I think he's a brother from another mother. What do you guys think? Welcome, Peter, to Life After Corporate.
Thank you so much, Deb. So honored to be here.
Oh, it's so great that Megan Conter introduced us. Megan is the founder of the Dames and part of an organization that I really enjoy being a part of. And Peter, when we were, before we dive into the content, I always like to know, what was your mission and purpose? How did you decide to make this transition from corporate to entrepreneurship? I know most people don't think it's interesting, but it's, and sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it's by force. But it's a really brave move that a lot of people aren't willing to do, but more and more people are making that choice. So I was wondering, what was the thought behind your business?
So Founder Edge is something new, but I'll go all the way back to the start. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree. Out of school, I became a software programmer, youthful idealist, and began to get involved with the sales processes in the companies where I worked and realized that the best products, the most noble products, the most virtuous products in the world may never see the light of day if someone doesn't figure out how to sell them. And it attuned me to how important it is to actually have sales proficiency. Like the merit, the old, if you build it, they'll come doesn't actually happen. It's like you actually have to find and learn how to sell whatever it is you have. And its virtue or its merit isn't going to do it for you. And so as an engineer, as an idealist, as somebody who's seeing all these great products being created in this technical community at the time, never seeing the light of day, to me, it was a travesty. And I decided I was going to learn how to master sales. And this was a while ago. This was, Centuity's been around for 28 years. So my purpose was initially that the great product should have a platform and have a way to see the world. And then deeper as I got into sales, realizing how unsustainable it was. And so, looking at that through the lens that my personal purpose for people is that every person should be able to have their work be their most, their greatest contributor of joy and vitality in their life, right? That it shouldn't drain us to go to work. And that really came out of taking sales positions and realizing, my God, this is not a sustainable role.
Yeah. Some people thrive in sales roles. For me, it just, made me ill. I really enjoy the strategy, not so much the quick pace and the repetition of, the numbers game is what it is for most people. But when you make the leap from corporate leadership to entrepreneurship, you don't have a business until you have a client, and you don't have a business until you have sustainable clients. And you and I were talking right before we hit record here about what a crowded market it is in 2026. If the last couple of years have been rough for most people, I know I've been paying attention to the McKinsey and LeanIn.org report on the state of women in the workforce, and about 1 in 4 women who are leaving corporate are choosing entrepreneurship. And I also know from organizations like Chief, for senior women leaders, that a good more than 20% of their membership is also transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship. So that's a sea change. That's a huge wave. And these women, and we both work with women, are entering a really crowded market. And you and I were chatting right before we hit record about a funny story and your epiphany this morning. So I was wondering if you would share what you realized when you were...
my founder edge journey, which is working with women entrepreneurs, is a new one. And when, I think a lot of us go through this when we start something new and entrepreneurial. We kind of go out and we look and see what's out there, and then we compare ourselves to whatever we find. And, I'm about 18 months into this now. And what I found is that there weren't many people. In fact, I couldn't find anybody authentically going after organic sales and leadership development for women entrepreneurs specifically. I thought I was alone in this space. There are a lot of people doing support around funding, support around marketing, things like that. And so I'm cruising along. I'm getting great feedback and such. And then I encountered this woman named Deb Boulanger. And I'm like, oh, this woman looks like she's got it together and she's doing the right stuff. And not only that, is her material looks even better than my material. And there's this moment of fear, I guess it is, that, oh, I'm not the only one in this space. And not only that, I'm not as good as this other person in this space. And all of the mess inside of your head that goes through thinking, well, can I still do it? And is it still possible? And, I'm looking at her stuff and saying, well, I should write an article like that. And you really begin to lose yourself a little bit. You get derailed by your own need for validity. I'll speak for myself. I get derailed by my own need for validity and worthiness and forget what I was there to do in the first place. Right. And I think, for me, those types of moments are fun learning moments. It's like, oh, wow, look at my mindset. I just got off in the ditch a little, and then coming around to how do you resolve it? And so remembering the purpose, the thing that you were trying to create. And one of the things I've learned on this journey is anybody who I run into that, like you, if we are aligned in our purpose, if we're aligned in our vision, then we must be partners, because there are to your point, there are so many people, so many women that need this support. There's no possible way you and I can cover them all, right? And I haven't met a lot of folks doing a good job of this, but I was honored to meet you.
Oh, thank you so much. And, the truth is, and my approach to this is, just like you have a unique DNA, right? There's no one like you in the entire universe. There's no one like me in the entire universe. Our life experiences have been completely different. And how we think, how we operate, there might be some similarities in how we process information or solve problems or communicate, but no one is you. And
Right.
so that's the good news.
Right.
And the bad news is no one knows that until you express that. Right.
Right. Right.
And so that is the dichotomy of launching a business in this market. It is crowded.
Yeah.
There's no one like you. It is, there are a lot of mindset traps along the way. And I love the way you said, isn't this interesting? The answer is curiosity, always curiosity. Isn't this interesting? I'm having this fun. And I want to normalize that for you, because it's not just a beginner's mind. The other day I told you I was scrolling through Instagram, and it's in the evening. Like it's 9:00 at night, 10:00 at night. No, it can't be 10. I'm in bed by then. And I'm scrolling through Instagram, which is, how I'm just like numbing out and getting entertained because I can't watch the news. And then I see one of my top competitors from 2024, 2025 with an Instagram ad on my feed. And I'm like, oh, really? And then I scroll again and I see someone who's brand new to the space with a similar ad saying similar things like I say. And, my conversations with clients or things I write about in my newsletter. And then it was like, oh, I took my competitor's quiz with one of the fake emails I use, and I didn't qualify for a business development call with her. And so, but my mind did go down that path, is like, WTF, what's going on here? Is this what we're coming to? And then I remembered, no one is me. No one expresses the same way I do. And nor do I want hundreds of non-qualified leads in my pipeline. That's not how I operate. I want to have real conversations with real humans. So it doesn't matter. And I'm 13 years in, right? So it doesn't matter if you're just launching something new or you're 13 years into the business. The comparing mind is always there. However, we need good strategies to stand out.
And that's an interesting point. I think it's important for everybody to hear that, is that 13 years in, we're still subject to that moment of, oh, what the hell's going on here? Well, are you able to put words to whatever that is, that fear or whatever it is, in a way that, might be useful. I'll try to do it as well.
Well, it's always to me, it's always about this success barometer. "Oh my god, I've been in this 13 years and, here's someone who's multiple 7 figures and, I'm not there yet, and am I ever gonna get there?" And yada, 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 yada. It's really
Right.
just head trash, right?
Right.
Um, so it doesn't I think if you can recognize it for what it is and not let it, like, sink some hooks into you and affect you in any way, I think the bad thing to do is try to act on it. Like, if
Yeah.
I had the next morning call my team and said, "We're gonna do Instagram ads,"
Right.
you know, I've probably invested more than $50,000 in marketing on Instagram just to have my friends message me back and say, "Oh my god, you look great in that reel." It just doesn't do anything for me. It's not
Yeah.
where my clients are. Um,
Right.
and so it's know your lane, know your value, know what works for you. And,
Yeah.
we're both deep conversationalists.
Yeah. Well, and it's, there's, as you talk, there's a couple of moments that I can remember from the past with coaching people, right? And so often, I mean, that's something else for people to know. From the coach's seat, it's so easy to see these things. But when it happens to ourselves, it's like we need the coach. Coaches need coaches, right? And we need the coach. We need somebody from that outside perspective to say, hey, it's happening to you as well.
Mhm.
But one of the things is the idea that there's these consultants out there in my space and they're, high 7 figures or whatever else. And it's like, first off, I'm not sure that I believe it. And second off, why does that matter to me? And there's a post I put up a couple of months back about enough. That one of the things I find in working with founders is we need to understand this concept of enough. That, do you need 7 figures? Is that a point that is meaningful and actually has a purpose for you? Or is it really just that's what's been given to you as the measure of validity, that until I get there, I'm not enough, right? And establishing that for yourself. And for a lot of folks, I don't need 7 figures. I can get by on half of that, right? Um, and that would be enough. I'd be abundant. I'd have everything I need. And so what are we optimizing around? Are we optimizing around making sure that we have the vanity numbers to throw out there and tell everybody? Are we optimizing around our purpose, around our freedom, around feeling like, we've created something meaningful? It's an interesting conversation.
And, when women leave corporate to start something on their own, what's frequently cited is the freedom, the impact, the flexibility, the mission and purpose. And you said this, I asked, what is the difference between women and men when it comes to sales? And we're going to dive into some sales challenges as well. And will you share what your perspective on that? That was really interesting.
Yeah, I'm often asked, why are you working with women founders? And it wasn't at the outset that I understood it. Um, at the time that Founder Ridge began, it was what felt right. It's what happened. It was sort of serendipitous, right? A year into it, I realized something, and that was what I shared with you before was if I just took, and my demographic is ex-corporate, mid to senior level, leaving the corporate world and selling in a B2B space, right?
Mhm.
I think quite similar to yours. If
Mhm.
I randomly took 10 of these female founders and built a relationship with them, what I'd find is 9 of them are purpose driven. 9 are driven around something more than the revenue, more than just, getting an exit and getting out, right? If I took the same random sample of 10 male founders, 9 are driven around revenue and that target number and an exit and being done, right? Sales looks different in those 2 environments.
Mm.
That when we're purpose driven, a lot of things that we will justify or not feel bad or yicky about doing on the revenue driven side suddenly don't fit anymore on the purpose driven side. And I think part of what made the transition to working with female founders for me natural is my style and my approach has always been more on the purpose driven side. And so it's been a natural fit.
Yeah. And so Here's the challenge I see with women who are so far leaning into their purpose and don't have enough revenue drive is that, especially when they first get started, it's like, "Oh, I've got a client, it's pro bono. Oh, I've got a client, it's pro bono." So, how do women get paid for their purpose?
You know, one of the key ideas with sales, especially in a purpose-driven world, is it has nothing to do with what you're offering. It has nothing to do with the service, nothing to do with the product. It has entirely to do with the problem that your customer is trying to solve. And that problem has its own intensity, it has its own impact. When you look at the sales process and you can shift entirely to being about the problem and talking about the problem, what you realize if you stay in that conversation long enough is that there is a monetary impact and there is a need to change it. And there is a benefit that that organization or individual is going to realize and recognize from that. And if you can stay entirely focused on the problem and not on the service, you can see where there is value and they're willing to pay. And I think something that will probably land for a lot of both of our listeners is that same person that you're doing the pro bono work will be paying somebody else for what they think they're going to get from you, and they're not going to get it nearly as well. And they're going to tell you that you're better than the person they just paid a lot of money to. And they just were plucky enough to ask for it. And how I help women get over that is really, if you focus on the problem, understand the value of the problem and everything else, you won't feel so ashamed of telling them, this is what I charge, because it'll be commensurate with the value to
Exactly.
delivering.
Yeah, it takes it away from your self-worth, whatever that is, whatever conditioning, psychological conditioning or belief systems you bring to the table. It objectifies it, which is, so much easier. And so that's great once you've earned the right to have the conversation,
Right.
right?
Right.
Getting over the fear of reaching out to people, asking for referrals or talking to strangers, doing cold outreach is so much harder than actually being in the conversation. So what are some of the challenges that you see your clients face and what's the fix for that?
It's, first off, it starts with understanding who you help. And I've seen some of your material. My material will say the same thing. It's narrow, specific focus on I help these types of organizations or these types of people solve this specific problem. So really understanding that being an expert at a narrow problem is really important. And then allowing your passion and curiosity about the problem to be the driver of conversation. One of the things that's a non-negotiable in selling is that we're going to have to end up in a conversation, right? In fact, for most of our B2B products, we're going to have a conversation at some point along the way, and probably multiple conversations, and possibly with multiple people. What we get caught up on is we have a preconception, the conversation's about us and our offering. And it's not. It never is. It's about them and the problem you're passionate about, the problem they have. And if we stay there and think about, well, what does that mean for my cold outreach? You don't outreach to tell people you solved that problem. That problem isn't even something we can talk about until they've presented that it's on the table. So a lot of times we'll design outreach, which is, hey, I'm building a best practice thought leadership article on this scenario that happens in these types of companies. When this happens, it appears you might have some wisdom about that. Are you willing to spend 15 minutes with me? And so then the outreach becomes much more academic, and it's not a ruse. It's real. Build the article.
Yeah.
Use the CEOs of those companies you want to go help to gather your information, to validate your thinking. And in that human connection, the 15 minutes, a percentage of the time, they're going to say, you know what, you sound like you know a lot about this, and are you able to help us with it?
Yeah.
And it makes a very natural transition into the problem conversation, right?
It's beautiful. I mean, it's the same approach we use in the Business Coaching Academy to understand where the market need is, right? So, and it's like training wheels for a sales conversation. It's a market research conversation. That's all it is. I was doing some research, and because of your position in your industry and your influence, you would be a perfect person to contribute to this study.
Yeah.
And it is a very low impact conversation, and it's a way to build relationship. And you do build the article or the report or whatever it is that you
Absolutely.
promised, and you share it.
And
So beautiful. We're in alignment again, Peter.
I'm going to tell you what, like you said, we're brothers from another mother, or siblings from another mother, but it's interesting that that doesn't occur naturally. I was coaching my niece a few years back. She was graduating from university with a degree in geology, and getting the job market was tough. And a kid at a college level calling up in her case, it was a chief geologist. I said, here's the deal. Reach out to 100 chief geologists. Tell them that you're just entering the market next year, you're senior, and just ask them what advice they give to a young person entering this space, right? I said, if you talk to 100, I guarantee you have a great job. Sure enough, she started talking to them. They were forthcoming. Some were salty, some were supportive and everything else. But next thing you know, she's got all these relationships and she's starting to get job offers, right? It's just, how do we find that natural conversation with the individual who actually might need what we do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And sometimes what I find too is that early stage founders hide behind the social media. They hide behind the post, and you feel like, oh, you've done your job. If you posted on Instagram 3 times this week, you did one long form newsletter, you did one carousel and one short form post, you're done. And there's a push and a pull, right? So you want to have the thought leadership and the ideas, and we can talk about why not to use AI for that. But, being a thought leader in your space so that when you reach out to people and they look at your profile and they look at the things that you're writing about, it establishes your credibility. It doesn't take the place of actually making cold outreach, and having a sales conversation with someone or a market research conversation, exploratory, right?
It, it certainly warms things up a bit. Let's talk about that, the AI and the,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's interesting. You are far more prolific at this point than I am, but, and I admire that. One of the things I think I've found is that, to your point, and I've seen you write it and I agree completely, AI helps us organize our thinking and get words that fit us, but it doesn't give us the content.
Right.
One of the things that I see, and for me, a lot of the coaching I give and a lot of the coaching I receive is about energy, right? If I'm letting AI write the content, I feel and if I feel unathonic for long enough, I feel like I'm an imposter and a farce and I can't stand behind my work, right? And I think that's one of the dangers that we don't see when we outsource too much to somebody else on the content, is if it's not us, to your point, the purpose of the content is to support the real conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I was listening to a podcast this morning, and someone who I respect and someone I've interviewed, and I am not immune to using Claude to, create a podcast script for me, out of some ideas. But what always disappoints me is when I hear someone clearly reading off of a script.
Right.
And, there was someone else who was really famous. Oh, yes. I was listening to a really famous podcaster. I will not drop his name. And I was like, "Oh my god, dude, like you are reading off an AI script,
Right.
and you're even surprised at some of the things that it's saying to you because you didn't come up with them." You
Right.
know?
Your own plot.
Yeah, so whenever I hear like, "Here's the thing, colon,"
Yeah.
like, "Oh, really? Like, you couldn't have even edited that out of your script." So, here's my it's a real big bugaboo for me. So, in this time, to be a thought leader, you need to be radically transparent to be a true original. And that also means that you need to be able to explore ideas just like we were exploring ideas. We were like, isn't this funny? What's really going on behind this mental
Yeah.
stimulation of noticing competitors and feeling like we don't stack up, right? If we were to continue this conversation, we would probably frame a whole new concept around that idea and we would label it and give it a name. And once
Sure.
you do that and that becomes yours, and I've trademarked so many ideas and so many
Right.
concepts like attention alchemy and return on advantage, that's true originality.
Yeah.
And when you are wanting to create a piece of original content, I get my ideas in the shower. I don't know about you. I grab ChatGPT and say, write me a 500-word email about this idea, and here's the concept, and here's the story I want to tell, and these are the words I want you to use. And so it's original. We're just kind of transcribing it into chat so it
Right.
tightens it up and makes it readable.
Yeah, I do the same thing, definitely. And, back to the idea of just the emotional ride we're on, right? When you think about the individual who is reading their script, there's something that tells them they need to do this. They need to push this out, even though it's not them, right? They don't have the time to make it their own. They don't have the time to actually rehearse it. And it kind of comes back to this idea of what are you doing this for? I find for me, I'm in the flow on content if I get really centered on who I'm helping and what it is they need help with. And then, like the conversation today, it just comes naturally, it flows. But if I'm trying to force it, something's wrong, right? And I think the other bit too that is really interesting and probably something that all of our listeners should consider. When you do find that person that intimidates you, striking up a partnership with them is going to generate so much great content and thought, right? Like today.
Yeah, it's so true. And speaking of partnerships, referrals, partnerships, this is the year I think of reciprocity, where really looking deeply at your network. I don't know about you. I get downloads sometimes at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I have to get out of bed and come downstairs and write them down, or I shoot off an email that really doesn't send until 8 a.m. because I'm too embarrassed to let people know I was up at 4:30 in the morning thinking about them. But this is the year of inspired partnerships. We don't get here alone, and having people that you can refer to. So I may be great at any number of things, but if my clients need remedial sales assistance because, psychologically they're getting in their own way or they just don't have the skill set, it's great to have you in the corner to refer to, knowing that this is your specialty. So surround yourself with other specialists. I was thinking about that this morning too, about my clients in the CEO circle who have been the clients that I've worked with the longest time, who are mid six figures. Some are happy at that space, some want to scale and exit. And I was thinking about how I don't want to be the center of their universe. I am part of them. I am just a peer leader to that group. And that when I introduce them to other people that fill a gap in their knowledge that they can then go off and work with, then I feel like I've done a service for these
Absolutely.
people.
I kind of, the sense I'm getting is that we're building a community, not just the communities that we work with, but a larger interconnected community. And back to the point you made about partnerships and referrals, that's an element that I think is integral and important to this female founder community, and something that I'm intending to focus a lot more on in this coming year is how do we help create that web of connectivity across all these extremely dynamic, bright, capable people and have them help one another to create it's almost like an alternative ecosystem of work and getting stuff done, driven a little bit more by purpose than by revenue and exit.
Yeah, and it's the energy of reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
I have done value exchanges and, before last year, it'd probably been 12 years since, when you're first starting out, it's like, well, I'll give you this, let's barter something. But this is different. This is, two successful people who have capability and expertise that each other needs. And in fact, paying each other is a great idea. So it might net out in the wash. It might be a net zero for both of us, but there is an energy exchange where I get to learn something valuable from you and you get to learn something valuable from me. And I think that's also a way around this economy where in 2020, I mean, you could put out a webinar and make six figures in a single day or a month. That's not happening so often anymore.
Right.
So having those alternate relationships and ways of receiving and giving value is very important.
Yeah, I think one of the things too, one of the places we get cloudy in this is when we get a scarcity mindset and we think, well, the client only has so much budget, and if we bring this other person in, well, half that budget goes away. And so I need to focus on taking it all myself because I'm in too much of a scarcity mindset. I think one of the things that, from a thought model perspective for me, is understanding that when we're aligned on our commitment, when we're aligned on our commitment to a client, and we bring a partner in that has that same commitment to the client, that we're going to generate more value, we're going to generate more abundance. And it's, shifting to an abundance mindset really kind of comes back to, what am I committed to? What is my purpose? What am I here to do? And if I'm truly committed to that, I'm not going to limit how much of that can happen in the world.
Right.
Like, it's evident to me you're very much committed to the same group of founders that I am.
Mhm.
And if I'm truly committed to them, then I need to partner with you because I need to assure that as much abundance can go to that group as possible. And so it's how do we look at it? How do we not fall into a scarcity mindset and have a fear of partners who, quite honestly might take some of the client budget?
Yeah.
But if we generate so much more value and so much more impact, then that static budget is no longer static. It grows, it flourishes.
Yeah, I believe that to be true. And I think that's a huge opportunity for fractional executives this year.
Yeah.
For those who are fractional CMOs, COOs, CHROs, whatever, partnering and creating a pod of expertise that your clients can draw from just makes everyone more wealthy. But I also want to talk about scarcity. And abundance, because, scarcity shows up at many different phases of entrepreneurship. In the beginning, it can show up when it comes time to hire someone for support and help and education, because the tendency is to say, oh, I've got X number of dollars of severance left. I'm looking at how long this is going to last before I run out of money. And when you come from that perspective, you will run out of money, because that's what you're focused on, instead of where can I invest? And I also think this is a difference between men and women. Instead of thinking, where can I invest and get a quicker return on that investment and start making money sooner? So I think that's number one. Number two, when it comes to pricing, you can fall into a trap of projected scarcity, right? So if you're feeling scarcity, then you're projecting that onto your prospects. Which I call projected scarcity, and that means you underprice, you undersell, you discount before there's an objection, and you really shoot yourself in the foot financially, profitably, from a profitable perspective.
And that compounds. That compounds. Next thing you know, you're barely getting by and you're working 60 hours a week, and that doesn't give you the space to grow.
That's right. That's right. And then you're in this trap. And as a solopreneur, like, you cap out at around 250, maybe 300, depending on your prices. But your capacity, your pricing can't outpace your capacity. And so if you're going to scale, you've got to bring some sort of leverage into your business, whether that's with partners, employees, or other people. But the scarcity mindset, and also, as I mentioned in the newsletter yesterday and today, is your self-worth isn't determined by your bank account.
No.
So whatever it is, whether you had $100,000 month 3 months in a row, and then you have a $10,000 month, neither one of those outcomes means anything about your value.
Right. It's interesting. It's an investment, but it's also a bet. And I think as entrepreneurs, if I only declare that investment as an investment, some investments don't pan out, and that's reality. And we have to make bets and see how they play. And sometimes, we'll spend money. And I mean, you've spent money on advertising and it didn't pan out. Part of what I look to do with the entrepreneurs early on is get them confident about one easy way that they can always go and make more money. Because at the end of the day, that severance only lasts so long. But if you learn, and we use a fishing analogy, if you learn how to go catch a fish, you'll eat, right? We don't have to build the commercial hatchery just yet. Let's just learn how to catch a fish. And then you start making bets, making investments, seeing which ones play out well. And if something doesn't play out, go catch a couple more fish.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of that journey.
So become a good fisherwoman.
That's right.
Peter,
Happy like that, right?
yeah, I mean, we could go on and on, I'm sure, for hours. I'm so grateful that you have decided to support women entrepreneurs, especially women at this early stage. Tell us more about Found Her Edge and how people can follow you, get in touch with you, learn from you if they choose.
Right now, it's Founder Edge is one program. It's a community. We get together weekly for an hour and a half. These are all women coming out of corporate. It's an international group. We got probably about a third to a half of them are in Europe, and the rest are in the States and in North America. And we're really focused on that early stage, that first couple of years. And we have a model of business maturity that we built called SAIL, SAIL, back to the fishing analogy, right? As is sustenance. And we're really helping women get to the point where they're putting enough food on the table out of the income they're generating organically to know that they're going to be in business a year from now. Really get to that level of sustenance where you get confidence that I can do this. Usually when you achieve sustenance, though, you are running yourself to death. And so the stage 2 is abundance, and it's an abundance of freedom, of time, of space in your schedule. And that comes from, like you said, making investments, optimizing, narrowing your focus, things of that nature. And stage 3 is where they all came into this space wanting, and that's impact. And one of the key things we're talking about is, hey, you got to achieve sustenance and then abundance before you can really work on your impact that you want to have. And so, and the final stage is legacy. But we work on helping them achieve sustenance and abundance. A lot of that is within the community. There's also a site, a community platform where we have all of our recordings and content. We have a WhatsApp group that we're constantly helping and supporting each other. We've got an email group, and it's really about assuring that in my mind, my role is to assure these businesses thrive.
Yeah.
That they don't fail, that they stay in business, and that 5 years from now, they've grown to their dream and they're having the impact they wanted to have. So it's helping through the mentoring, coaching around sales, around leadership, around mindset to make that work.
Yeah. Peter, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your passion for the success of women entrepreneurs. We need more allies like you. And so appreciate you sharing with us your journey, your passions, your expertise with our audience here today.
I thank you I'm just so honored to be here. Thank you.
And we'll put the links to connect with Peter in the show notes. And that's it for now, my friends. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you choose and leave us a rating or review. We'll be back next week with more great content and advice on how to make more money, meaning, and impact doing work you love. See you soon.